Hello, so today's going to be a little bit of a chill, reflective video. We're going to be looking at set 13 and thinking back about all the things in set 13, what we liked, what we didn't like, and kind of reflect on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading through this TFT dev drop. This released a couple days ago, and basically what it is the devs reflecting of their learnings that they had throughout the set and how that's going to apply to future sets that they design and work on. So this is like this long document where they kind of talk about the things that went well, the things that didn't go well, and basically summarize all the things that they worked on and how they kind of made the set 13 into the Arcane come to fruition and work out. So we're going to read through this, kind of skim it, and I'm going to give my opinions on certain points and see if it coincides with what the devs think. And yeah, it's just going to be a nice little reflective, pensive video. So if you enjoyed set 13 and you enjoyed my content, this is like a nice little bookend closing to the content of set 13. Also, thank you to everybody who subscribed to my channel. 7,000 subs is more than I ever thought I would get. Back when I was making videos and only getting like 10 views per video back in the a year ago, starting out with this YouTube channel as a little for fun daily project that I did. I do daily TFT content if you're new here, guides and reviews and stuff like that. So if you like my content, please make sure to like and subscribe. 7,000 subs was our goal to have viewer games. So if you want to join the Discord, and next week when the PBE comes out for set 14, we're gonna have some viewer lobbies, and also we're gonna have probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, if people are in the Discord and willing, we're gonna have some final closing games of set 13 before we start playing in the PBE, where we can have some lobbies with the community. So make sure to join the Discord if you want to be a part of those. Now let's get into this. So this is their once a set conversation. Like they said, they usually do this at the end of the set, and they talk about their learnings, what they found went right, what they found went wrong, and how they can improve on certain facets of the game or pat themselves on the back for other things that they did. So this is kind of like the little summary. So we're going to kind of skip over this because we're just going to go through them in more detail a little bit later. So how did Arcane land at a set? So personally, I think the set was really well done if you're a fan of Arcane and if you like the Arcane theming. I think they spent a lot of effort. They put a lot of units that aren't normally in League of Legends, like Rennie, Smeech, Savika, like these other units in the set. It's a unique experience that really encapsulates the Arcane theme. I think they did a really good job with the trait webs to kind of bring to fruition some of those ideas in the show. I'm not a huge Arcane fan. I didn't really like the show, but I know a lot of people love it and it's their favorite show ever. So hopefully you guys feel the same way. Maybe my opinion isn't as good because, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan. Maybe you guys don't think it was done well, but I think it was done amazingly. So let's get to it. So creating a set, bridge your favorite game with your favorite show, crafting a darker, bolder, more intense than anything you've ever done. Sure, I don't think it was super intense, but it was pretty good. Basically, we're just skimming through this because this part isn't the part that I'm super interested in, but I just want to see if they pat themselves on the back, right? Yeah, committing 10 brand new champions, no small feat. I think they should pat themselves on the back. I think they did a great job. I think some of the units, specifically like Smeech and Rennie, where there wasn't really a basis for the units to kind of like take from something else, they did a really good job of designing them, and it was really cool. So I really like that, right? So these 10 new characters were great. Using like new models was also really cool. Arcane driven mechanic was also cool, but they said they're going to talk about it in its own section here, so we're actually just going to read about it after. That's the whole anomaly thing, which before we even get to it, I'm going to say I think they did an amazing job with the anomaly. I think that's one of the highlights of the set for me. And now some bolded statements that we can read through. So release of Arcane was a huge moment for all across Riot, not just TFT, so you have to be synchronized with this. They created complexities in the way they were able to ship the set and talk about ahead of release. Yes, that's true, as well as a shortened PBE cycle. So if you didn't know, this was actually a huge problem for me that I was really annoyed with. Basically, there was only 1 week of PBE. So PBE is like a test environment where like they ship everything like a couple weeks before. So it's like whatever the next patch is usually what's up on PBE. So you have like a 2-week head start. And it's kind of like testing and nothing finalized to like look for bugs and test out some of the stuff. And it's like open beta basically. So whenever a new set's launching, you usually want to practice on PBE ahead of time. Just for me, like if I'm making content, I want to make content about it. I want to learn about the stuff because I want to make sure that my YouTube videos are the most informed starting the set, because that's like the mad dash, the mad race, especially if you're a content creator. And only having a week of it was really annoying because usually it's 2 weeks. But that was partly because of the the release schedule of the Arcane show that they had to coincide with, and they couldn't like release certain things because then it would be like spoilers or stuff like that. So they want to make sure that like the first episode or so was released. Same thing with the 6 costs that had to be like staggered as well. It made balance even tougher. I think that's true because like without the PBE extra week, this set, I know that you guys probably look at the beginning of this set and think to yourselves like, wow, this set was like really well done on launch. They patched it a lot on launch. They did 3 patches, right? Like they did more patches on launch for this set within a week than most other sets I've played have had within a month. Like they literally did a C patch. They did an A patch, a B patch, and a C patch. Like it was crazy. Like every other day they were trying to fix the bugs and fix the problems and fix some of the unit balance to make it like at a tolerable level. And even then, once it finished, there were still bugs and some issues and stuff and some comps and units that were really overtuned. So it was a bit like, but of course it lasted so short because they did so much work. So while the PB was really small, I think it was really stressful for the devs. I feel for them. I feel bad for them. I'm glad they did the work, but I just wish they just released it a little bit. I wish maybe like the timing of it was like a little bit like scheduled so that they just had more time in PBE, because at least for me that first week was really annoying because like if I'm playing like 10 games a day, it was like 10 games a day, oh shit there's a patch tomorrow, 10 games tomorrow, oh shit there's a patch tomorrow, oh shit there's 10 oh there's a patch tomorrow. It was so hard for me to like even talk about stuff. Like I remember I had to sit on like my Violet video for a while because I was like, do I talk about this unit or is it getting C patched? It's like I don't know yet. Do I talk about Black Rose or is it getting C patched? I don't know yet. It was just really awkward for me personally, but I think as a whole they did a really good job. I think it was one of the best launches that they had. And then that to evolve the game, this was the part I hated. I hate the 6 costs, and we're getting to evolve set and 6 costs. I hope they say something along the lines of they're never bringing this shit back. I think that the set, I think this set would have been one of my most favorite sets. Like right now, like I remember I did the tier list ranking of the set's enjoyment. For me, 6 cost was so miserable of an experience that I derank this set significantly just because of 6 costs. Like if you didn't have 6 costs added to this set and you kept everything else the way it was, balance wise, unit wise, trait tree wise, synergy wise, comp metas, like throughout the entire set was amazing. I think it was arguably the best balanced set that I've played in recent history, so starting with set 9. I think consistently there was a huge amount of quality. I think the units were well designed. Their traits were amazing that you can just shift between multiple different types of boards. I felt like every single comp had a spotlight moment, and even towards the end of the set, even right now, maybe like the only one that's like super difficult to play around still is Conqueror / Pit Fighter, like one of those two. But like every single comp has a situation which makes it really good, and I think that's great. There's a good balance of reroll, not to a point where it feels completely degenerate, but with 4 costs as well. They did an amazing job, and then 6 costs ruined it for me, and now this is one of my least enjoyed sets, just because of 6 costs, which I talk about a lot outside of this. So let's see what they think about it, and let's talk about it through their eyes. So they couldn't reveal Mel. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you know, Arcane spoilers. They plan to include 6 costs. Their characters were just not too impactful, but the time was everything. Launching an evolved version of the set would bring our vision to completion. I think this is fine. I think it's fine that they staggered it because of the show. I think it made it a little bit hype and interesting. I just wish they weren't. I wish they didn't exist the way that they did. I wish they were either more achievable as units so that you didn't feel like it was just luck if you got it, or they were less achievable and they have impacted fewer games. But I think that ruins the casual experience. So I would have preferred the first one, where like there was some way similar to like a 5 cost, right? Like if somebody gets a 5 cost, they can high roll a 5 cost, they can high roll a 2-star 5 cost, but you don't feel doomed because it's some giga unit. And they balanced them eventually, which I'm sure they'll talk about. But like at the beginning of the set, like for like the first couple months until they like fixed all of the units and like balanced them a bit, it was very miserable. Like on launch, like it was just a victor simulator. It was so annoying. And it was like that for like a week or two, and then it was like a Mel scam, and then Warwick was broken for like 3 patches, and it was just so annoying even to the end of the set. I just hated it. But yeah, it's okay. Your stagger approach made the most sense. That's sure. I also made the choice to let anyone access 6 cost regardless of player level once the anomaly appeared, or in Victor's case a bit earlier. This meant that every player, whether they preferred power leveling or reroll strategies, had a fair shot at these game-defining units. I think that's fine, but it's not necessarily always true, because like it's not always true. Like I don't want to get into it, but yes, sure. It also ensured reroll comms didn't get left in the dust just because 6 cost broke the power ceiling. The problem is, it felt like, how do I phrase it? It felt better for rerolls, right? Because with rerolls, you often had a better chance of hitting the 6 cost because you're just rolling more gold. So statistically, you're more likely to hit the 6 cost. It was actually like a buff to reroll. Because the rerolls, a lot of times your board is complete on level 8. You're like, what do I level for? A 6 cost. It's like, well, how do you find a 6 cost? Well, you just have to burn an exuberant amount of gold, which you're doing anyways because you're rerolling a lot. But obviously, this didn't always matter because, like, a lot of rerollers rolled before the anomaly. It really only mattered in Victor's vision. In Victor's vision, it was really obnoxious. So, like, it's okay. That's fine. But this approach had trade-offs. Aside from hitting level 10 or hoarding gold, there was no real agency in finding a 6 cost. It was just luck. Yeah, this is the part I didn't like. I didn't like that there was no way that if somebody, like, if I'm playing the game and I look at my board and I'm like, this is my power level, and I look at everybody else's board, I'm like, this is their power level, and I come up with a strategy to try and play around that to the best of my ability. It's so annoying when somebody just hits a 6 cost, like they hit a Victor, and then, or they hit, like that was earlier in the patch, or they hit a Warwick later in the patch, or they hit a Mel and they have an extra life. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, well, how can I adjust to this? And it's like, oh, I can't. Because there's nothing I can do. I can't roll for a 6 cost. I can't level for a 6 cost. I just gotta hope that I get something to also spike my board. And a lot of for much of the set, it was a massive spike with the 6 cost. And that's what made things feel very frustrating. And it wasn't a matter of like, I had a feels bad, oh, I'm sure they'll say it here. And while that rush felt amazing when you hit, it was also a feels bad moment if your opponent rolled a game-saving 6 shots right after the anomaly appeared. Yeah, the problem is that statistically, like, in my games, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, it's not 50-50. It's not like I hit a 6 cost or my opponent hit a 6 cost. It's I have 7 opponents. So the chances are I'm usually losing because of 6 cost way more often than I'm winning because of 6 cost. That's part of TFT, right? Most of the time, like, there is an 87 or whatever the percentage chance is, 7 out of 8. There's a 7 out of 8 chance that you're not going to be the one going first, that you're not going to be the giga high roller. So if somebody just high rolls an early 6 cost and they just start steamrolling the lobby because of it, and they just have a huge spike to their board, it was really annoying. And it's often like there was multiple 6 costs by the end of the game. But if you don't have a 6 cost and everybody else happens to have a 6 cost, you just have to sit there and be like, oh, well, screw me, I guess. And that's the part I really didn't like. So I just didn't like. I wish that like I wish the 6 costs were weaker. Like if I had it ideal to me, which obviously isn't ideal for everybody, but if I looked at it and I said, what would I have done to make the set better for my own personal greedy, like selfish desires? It would be make the 6 cost odds higher, but make the 6 cost weaker. And I would have been a lot happier, because that way there's more of a chance that you can bail yourself out by hitting the 6 cost as well. And that way there was some level of hope that you can strategize towards it and adjust your strategy based on somebody hitting a 6 cost that can help you out a little bit. That's the part that I really didn't enjoy, but that's obviously a personal thing. I'm sure there's people that love 6 costs and it's their favorite part of the set, and that's totally valid and totally fine, because I understand TFT is not just for me, it's for a variety of different players and a variety of different play styles, and I'm somebody who I like it to be a little bit more like normal gameplay, if that makes sense. Not normal, quote-unquote normal, because nothing's really normal. Like, I mean, just like bland, more vanilla. Ultimately, land on this approach is the least problematic. Yes, 6 spots are accessible without forcing every player into power leveling arms race. That's fine. I would have liked the power leveling arms race a little bit more, but maybe that's just me. Now let's talk about power balance. Our goal was simple. When a 6 cost showed up in your shop, you'd want to slam it on your board, even at the cost of a trait synergy. This makes sense, but I think the implication didn't work out as well, because the traits were actually so strong. Something in this set was that a lot of the vertical traits are really strong. If you think about a lot of the comps, like Rebel, you have to play 7 Rebel. Sorks, you have to play 6 Sorks. Right? Like, there's a lot of comps where it's like you have to play the max of the vertical. Even Visionary now, you have to play 6 Visionary. So this isn't true. What ended up happening was it became a lottery of trying to hit an emblem, right? A lot of times, the best options you can usually take are emblems. Emblems getting really powerful this set, because what you would do is, like, you know, branching out, for example. Usually that's like one of the shittiest silver augments ever, but it's arguably an instant click this set, because you always want to rip an emblem, because having the emblem allows you to do both. It allows you to fit in the 6 cost if you high roll the 6 cost, as well as fit in your board for the synergy. Like, if you have a Sork emblem, guess what? You can just shove a Mel with a Sork emblem on your board if you see a Mel. But if you don't have a Sork emblem, you still have to play 6 Sork, so you have to sacrifice your front line, and then sometimes that doesn't make sense because it's a Mel, but it would make sense if it was a Warwick or maybe a Victor. But like, that's what I mean. It's like it wasn't like they were they were powerful, but the synergies were more powerful, so it just kind of made it so you had to get like an emblem a lot of the time, and I don't really like playing around that because it made it a little bit more forcing, right? Like, a lot of flexible, like a big part of flex play is not taking an emblem so you can play multiple lines, but a lot of the idea of planning around 6 costs required emblems to be really good. Like, I'm sure in your games now, no matter what your elo is, one of the best things to do at the start of a game is just rip Wandering Trainer Golem or branching out. Like, if you're not clicking those instantly, like, I feel like most people do that because of this mentality of you just need the extra space, because there's a lot of options, not only with 6 cost but also with other units. A lot of flexible options, right? Like, if you have an emblem and you can just fit in like an Elise stun or a Jace crystal or something like that, it always helps to have some extra space. But you know, it's part of with the 6 cost as well, at least in my opinion. On release, 6 costs had too much utility. Yes, they sucked at fucking release. We overcompensated, thinking they needed an extra versatility. No, I did not like any of this. Instead, players were picking them just for their effects. Victor for Shred, Sunder, and Stun. The stun was ridiculous. Mel with the Banished Mage. I hate Banished Mage. Like, Banished Mage to me is so annoying, because there used to be an augment like this, and they removed it from the game because it was too annoying, right? There was an augment, what was it called? It was Last Stand, right? There was like a prismatic augment where it's like, if you get dropped down to 1 life, you still live, right? And then there was a charm in the last set. If we're not talking about last set 12, there was a charm that was like, you just get to live an extra turn, and they removed that shit because it was bad for the game. It was like, okay, we don't want people to just have an extra life, so they literally removed it from the game. And then immediately set 13 comes out, and it's like they just spent the last couple sets removing this mechanic from the game, because anybody who hit it, it was so frustrating and annoying, and it was hard to balance, and they immediately added it back to the game in the form of this Mel. It's like, what are we talking about? Like why did we literally just spent the last several sets removing every instance of this thing occurring, and we just added it back? Like, I don't get it. It was so tilting. But eventually it worked out to be okay. I don't even think Mel is as big of a problem. At launch, it was a little bit more annoying. But like, over time, it's kind of like simmered down. A lot of the 6 costs have simmered down. I played from the perspective of having played for the last 4 months. So there was like a good 2-month period where these were more of a problem. And in this last couple, like 3 or 4 weeks, it's a lot less of a problem. So please, you know, consider that. We since fine-tuned them. Yep, that's fine. And this was before 13.6, I guess, when they wrote this. So yeah, they tweaked it a little bit, but yeah, it's mostly just the accessibility of them that just annoys me. I hate losing a game because of somebody hitting a 1% chance of some crap, right? Because there's enough of that in the game, and adding it to the game, like, I hate not being able to plan or play around something. Right? There's not really a strategy to plan or play around your opponent hitting an early Warwick and just railing you because they have a Warwick. You know, the only thing you can do is just continue to play your strongest board, and it's part of the reason why lose streaking is really bad this set. You just don't want to ever be at low HP, because you know the only way you can play around the fact that somebody high rolls a Warwick is that you have enough HP to live if they hit you with the Warwick scam. So it made the I didn't like it at all. We learned a ton from these champions. Before launch, we were worried about board wide stun. Once Victor released, we realized it wasn't even the scariest part of his kit. I disagree with this a lot, but maybe they know more than me. I'm sure they do, because they have stats. Removing his Shred and Sunder, they had to buff him multiple times. The only reason they were buffing him multiple times was because nobody ever put items on him, because he was just not an item unit. But Victor was still strong. Victor is situationally strong if you compare him with another stun, because like the stun is so long. It is really strong, Like, Victor right now is broken if you're playing like what's it called, dramatic entrance, or if you're playing the other thing, Rebel, or if you have all three of them. Like, it's so annoying. But it's not even like the buffs mattered at all to him. Like, they buffed his damage, but nobody puts items on him for damage anyways. Like, even to this day, like, very rarely. Like, it wasn't like they removed his Shred and Sunder, and then they buffed him multiple times, and everybody's like, ah, now Victor's a good, strong unit. It was like, no, you're still just playing him for the stun. He's literally just a stun bot. Even when he had Shred and Sunder, he was just a stun bot. It was just he had the extra benefit of doing Shred and Sunder. But even now, you never put items on the Victor. Very rarely, unless you have like a TG or you have a bunch of extra items that work well on him. You're very rarely saying to yourself, oh, I'm going to move items onto this Victor. This guy's going to carry. He doesn't do anything. He just stuns a lot of the time. And then Warwick, they said they're going to talk about it later here, so we'll look at it later. Anomaly. I think Anomaly was one of the best done mechanics. I think there's very little wrong with this. I think they did an amazing job. I think the balance was good. I think overall, most of the anomalies were pretty good. There's some of them that are really shit, and there's some of them that are really good. But there's always going to be stuff like that because of the idea of, like, you know, making ones that work for a particular spot or not. I think they handled degeneracy really well by making it not able to roll infinite to just get your perfect anomalies each time. I think there was lots of cool and interesting synergies that were circumstantial at different points. I think they did an amazing job. This is one of the best parts of the set, and I really liked this mechanic. I think the mechanic was great. I felt like there was comprehensive decision making that you had to have. I think having good knowledge of different facets were really great. It was just so good. They really like home run out the park. Like the problems with the anomalies and stuff like this, like, you know, are so minute where it's like I don't even care that much. Like, I'm not gonna complain about the problems that I had with anomalies because they're not really problems. It's just like, oh, this should be balanced better. It's like, yeah, well, you know, I get they would have done it if they had more time or if they knew more or something like that. It's like I don't care too much about those type of things. But anyways, I'll go with the set mechanics that changed in the past few sets. So we've been keeping mechanics in a similar scope and tied to being thematic. Yep, of course. Within the paradigm, Anomaly is pretty successful set mechanic, even after the first few patches where we fine-tuned the distribution rules and added a few more interesting options. I think this is great. I would have liked it if they didn't add so many extra anomalies. I felt like they just saturated it a lot. I actually liked it a little bit more with the fewer ones, but I think adding more options makes it a little bit more exciting and fun for the majority of the player base. So like I said, that's not really something I can really complain about. On release, you're able to handpick the anomaly. This was a problem. It was very degenerate, right? Like, there were certain comps that were, like, the Urgot set Hunger for Power was really annoying. But I understand, like, this, I think, was a good change where you make it so that you can't hand select it anymore. They made it so that, like, you can only, like, you know, they repeat after a certain amount of times. And I think that's good. I think that when you release a mechanic like this and you allow for these degenerate plays, it makes it very hard to balance because then you have to balance Urgot and Set and the anomaly around this one occurrence occurring. And that makes it similar to like Ornn artifacts where it's just like unbalanceable, and then you have to nerf like the item, and then the item isn't good on people, and then the anomaly isn't good on other people, and then the units aren't good on their own, all because like there's one broken combination. So I think like making it so that it's like, you know, if you hit Exodia, you could hit it, but like this Urgot eating Set, nobody ever plays towards this line anymore because you can't expect to hit the anomaly, so you never really ran this particular build. And I think that's what I mean, like those type of degenerate strategies, it immediately cut it out of the meta, which maybe you might look at it and say like, well, that's not fun. But at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I think that's good because it would have been such a horrendous balancing of the set to like, sorry, the set, not set the unit, like the set, like set 13, to like deal with all of these specific scenarios. So when we do COA to make TFT more fun, we acted fast. Our first change was cap 12 rolls. Yep, that's fine. After which rolls would be truly random. When the option was truly random, there's an equal chance for each option to appear at a given time. Okay, so yeah, and then they made it so that's like a rolling thing, right? So you can't see the same anomaly more than once within 12 rolls. So it's kind of like a moving window, the way I think about it in my head, like a moving window and like a stream sampling. I don't know the right way to say it. That's a nerdy way of describing it, but that's the way I think about it. Probably in mouth or foundation of game design, but another vital piece we took from the anomaly was which ones resonated the most with players. Yeah, I think that's fine. Which ones were the ones that infectious, finisher, and giant size? So infectious always has like a win condition. So this one was really broken on launch. Right now it's not particularly good, but it always feels like it has a win condition, so you never want to skip it. That's the problem with infectious. So even though you know that it's not good, a lot of times if you don't have a lot of gold, you kind of have to take it because you're like, well, I know this one actually will win me the game if I just live a little bit longer, so I might as well just take it and roll the dice on it. Finisher is pretty shit. It's crazy that this one's really popular. I used to like it a lot earlier in the set. Like I loved the finisher on like Zoe, for example, when you would play like Zoe Rebels and then she would just like snipe the backline. But I think this is like noob bait. I think the people who take finisher, I think it's just like, I don't think anybody who, like, it doesn't give a lot of value. I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't give a lot of value for what it is. It's the one that executes. Giant size, yeah, that one's just, whenever you have a system mechanic in TFT where it strictly makes a unit bigger or sees a number go up, think like a Gwinsu, a Titans, like, you know how Titans makes a unit bigger, giant size, and makes the unit bigger. Like giant size, if you compare it to like deep roots, giant size gives 1000 HP and it makes the unit really big, so it's very visual. It looks like your unit became more powerful. Deep roots, it gives 700 HP and 25 armor, 25 magic resist. It's arguably significantly better than giant size, right? It's 300 less HP, but it gives you a bunch of resistances, which overall works to be like around the same, if not more effective HP, depending on your lobby. So it really, like, but giant size was so much more popular because, like, a lot of times it's kind of like a noob bait thing again, but like, you know, if I'm describing you as the player, I don't mean it as an insulting way, but it's just something that exists in TFT. A lot of times units and things are overplayed where they have either a number that ticks up or they have a unit that becomes bigger, because if you can visually see that something changed on your board with like the effect, it's like a feedback loop, and it gives you that good part of your brain that goes like, oh boy, I'm so much stronger now, look, my guy's really big. This was a problem in set 12. In set 12 there was a unit, Nasus, and he was a frontline like bruiser, like the way bruiser is now. It was called shapeshifter or whatever in set 12. He would grow bigger when he was like a tank, and he was way overplayed, and he actually got nerfed when he was like one of the worst performing tanks in the game. And a lot of it was like, everybody was speculating like, why does everybody play this unit? And it's like, oh, when you look at the statistics, he was like really overplayed the like certain elos, and it was like, it's probably because he just gets really big and people think that he's really tanky because he's like grows to like twice the size of the board. But it's stuff like that, so I always find it funny. I don't think this is like an indicator of these are like the 3 best anomalies, but it's funny that these are like not even 3 of the best anomalies, right? Like, for example, the best anomaly right now that you never click away from are Center of the Universe and Share Your Energy. Like, if you look at any lobby that I'm playing, if you ever see either of those 2 augments or those 2 anomalies, you always take them. They are by far the best 2 generic ones that it doesn't even matter what you need on your board. As soon as you see it, you're like, there is maybe one anomaly that might be better than these in my spot, so I cannot risk it. You just take those. So those ones are like, at least for me, if I have to go through all the anomalies I've taken, I think those 2 are the most common, just because like I know they're broken. And it's funny that like they're not even close to being here probably, or maybe they are, maybe it's like 4 and 5, but like, you know, this seems kind of funny. But infectious, yeah, infectious was broken, and it does have a win condition, so this one makes sense. Anyways, let's move on. Anomalies are popular because of their general use cases, but also because of simplistic nature. I think it's an important reminder to make straightforward outputs to prevent increase in dizziness. Yeah, that's fine. I also like that on the anomaly round, it gave you a lot of extra time. A lot of times when you have like these mechanics and stuff, like they try and like fit it all in the same round, and then it becomes overwhelming. They actually, like, the anomaly round was always like, it gave you like an absorbent amount of time, so you had like a lot of time to think it through and work on it. And I think that's a great thing that they did, instead of just making like a mad dash rush thing. The anomaly was a fresh way to push up power or fantasy, right? So deep roots or laser eyes, yeah. Center of the Universe, Twitch. I don't even think Center of the Universe Twitch was like the broken thing. You just put Center of the Universe on anybody. This was a fascinating space. Not in our very next set. Yeah. So this is the mechanic. They might bring it back some way, kind of like how they did encounters, but it's not coming back next set. That's obvious. Augment design. So I think augments were generally okay. There's some of them that I didn't like, which I'm sure they'll talk about. But we'll see. So there's several learnings. So expected unexpectedness versus call to chaos. Yeah, I really didn't like unexpected unexpectedness because some of the cash outs were just like a straight grief. And for a prismatic, this one was pretty bad. It's basically like roll the dice, but 3 times. I didn't like it. I tried to avoid it when I can. When we diluted the exciting random power of Call of Chaos into 3 smaller events, none of them felt very good and the augment felt less satisfying. It's not as like like the problem is Call to Chaos is like a bailout augment, and expected unexpectedness is that you take it at the start of a game as like your direction. So if you take it and you get like one of the shitty ones, like there's so many times where you just get like 4 chainmails, you know, because you can get 4 of the same component. You get 4 tank components. It's like you click it, you get 4 tank components, and you sit there. It's like, I guess I'm main carry a tank. Like, I don't know what I'm playing. And it felt really bad because it wasn't like a bailout. The reason people click Call to Chaos is because you're just hoping for like the bailout. You're like, okay, let's just see something crazy and maybe I win the game off of this. And then you take it and you often don't win the game. It often griefs you, but that's why. It's like a very different use case between the two of these. So I think this one just didn't work well because the cash outs didn't feel that great. Like there was the one cash out that was broken with roll the dice, which was the give HP to your whole board. That one, if you hit that, you just knew that you were winning the game. Like that's the one that you take it for. And it was pretty common. You had like a 30% chance of hitting it or something, or a 20% chance. I forget. But that one was the Giga one. Anyways, let's continue. We still like the augment. But this example, random highs are better with sharp singular moments than drip releases. I guess so, but I don't necessarily agree with this. I think the bigger problem was what I was saying, right? Like this is a big bailout, which is why it's exciting and fun, and why you usually click it is because you're looking for the bailout. And this one is just like it gave you like a lot of shit throughout the game. I guess they're right. It is better in a sharp moment, but like, silver champion augments. During Magic and Man, we had difficulty balancing our 1-cost champion augments. Yep, these are the hero augments. They were really shit in set 12. That's what they're talking about. Placing them in silver, we were able to better balance them. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like trolling, Mad Chemist, Blade Dances. The problem is they removed augment stats, so I didn't get to experience a lot of these. Like, I don't think I've played a single game of Mad Chemist. I've played 1 game of Blade Dance, and I've never played a game of trolling because I never got the opportunity. I've played 600 and something games, and I've never had a spot to take trolling because it's a silver augment, and I'm always too scared to take it because it's like, for most of the set, I didn't know if it was bugged or not. Because the problem is, without augment stats, I never want to take any of these. Because most of these were bugged at one point. Like, I think Mad Chemist had bugs. The Vladimir augment had giga bugs throughout of it. And then some of them are just weaker in other cases. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of hero augments in general, though. Golemify and Dumbify. Yeah, these ones were pretty cool. I like the risk reward of taking them because you sacrifice a lot of econ to take them. But it does make your board significantly stronger, so it's pretty interesting, right? Like high stakes augments. Yeah. I think these ones were well done. I kind of like them in what they became. I think they're a little bit overtuned now, but that's fine. It's the end of the set. Team up augments. These ones I think sucked. Basically, the way team up augments kind of worked out to be is that they were supposed to have some like cool ability that you play the units for, and you have like this cool board you make with the team up augments. I thought on release they were going to be broken and cool and strong, but they're actually so non-impactful that you never really care about them at all. The only reason you take the team up augments is like, let's say you're playing enforcers and you see martial law. It's like, oh great, I get a free Caitlyn, now I win the game because I have Caitlyn. But you're not itemizing the Caitlyn to make use of her AD, to make the Mbessa cast more and then take the AD and share the AD and like do this cool thing. You're not building the Caitlyn differently because you have team up augments, and you're not playing into the team up augment. You're just taking it to get a copy of the unit. So it was basically like a shitty econ augment that only worked if you were in a spot to play that unit already. And I thought they were going to be more like, here's 2 5 costs. If you can creatively make a board around them, they will be very powerful together. And yes, there will be Abyss board around them, but the power of the augment I was hoping would be strong enough to make these augments more of like a playable thing. But right now, it's like if you see like Jinx Savika, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not clicking it unless you're playing Rebel or you're playing Jinx. Like, there's no shot you're clicking that shit unless you're playing a comp where you needed the Jinx in the first place. You're not just going to take it and say, oh, I'll make a Jinx Savika board and I'll work it out on this roll down. It's like, no, the augment kind of does nothing for the most part. It just gives you the copy of the unit. So it feels like a gross failure to me, because it's just like a bailout for people that are playing that particular comp. And honestly, it felt very annoying, especially with the Caitlyn ones, where you just get a Caitlyn for free, and then the Enforcer hits their huge vertical power spike, and then you're all just fucked. It's like, oh, great, that's nice. Let's see what they think. These successfully allowed relationships from Arcane that weren't viable. Okay, cool, yeah, I know the whole Arcane thing. Fantasy these provided was great. The power and gameplay excitement was diluted. I agree. A lot of the power had to be in the unit being accessed early, not leaving much room for the effect to contribute. I agree. Yes. Augments like Unlikely Duel and Martial Law all provide very powerful units, often before you can access these 5 costs reliably. So much of the combat power was instead sort of economic power. Exactly. And they couldn't make the combat better because of how strong the unit was to get it. Because then if you make the combat strong, then it's like giga broken. So like, it just felt like a bailout. Like, I agree. Like, they were very bland and they just felt annoying. And it was just like, you look at somebody's board and they randomly have a Caitlyn. It's like, oh, great. Martial Law, GG. These 6 cost augments, these all end up being undertuned. I agree. It's because the 6 costs, if you get gifted a 6 cost for a prismatic, it's not as good as just getting a 6 cost normally, if that makes sense, right? The ceiling is you have 6 costs, you can put the anomaly on. Now the problem with this was that like some of them were bugged. I had a bug with the Mel one where I got the cash out the turn before the anomaly, but because it was the anomaly round, it didn't count. So I had to do another round of saving 60 gold or some shit. Like, it literally bugged for me. So like, I didn't even get to put my thing on my Mel. So it was really annoying. And then the other ones were too hard to hit before the anomaly. The only one that was often takeable was the Mel one, because the Mel gives you 2 resources. It gives you the extra life because of the Mel, and it also was really easy to proc because you just needed to have 60 gold, which you can do that round, right? You can just like not roll down. You can just like sit there, keep your 60 gold, and then the next turn you can roll down straight to 0. Then you just have to win a round and then you get your Mel. So it's very easy to cash out. The other ones just didn't have that easy of a cash out, so it just wasn't worth it because you're spending so much time down a prismatic to try and get these 6 costs without spiking your board. You're just down a prismatic for an entire stage. Like the Warwick one was really annoying. Like really annoying to cash out is what I mean. So yeah, I don't know. I feel, yeah, they didn't hit the mark. I agree, they didn't really hit the mark. Opening encounter. So I didn't like this at all. I think this was one of the worst parts of the set again. I think the balance of the encounters was really shit. What I mean by that is the odds of them appearing. For a majority of the set, it took around until like over halfway to the set for them to like remove the freaking Warwick encounter. It was so annoying. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. It ruined me. It ruined my mental. It ruined my enjoyment of the game. I genuinely want to quit my YouTube channel. I said, what if I just delete everything tomorrow and I just sign off the internet and I just never play TFT again? It was so unfun. In combination with the 6 cost, in combination with everything else that I didn't like about the set, it was just not fun and it sucked. And I think that there's an inherent balancing when you get to vote, because at least when you get to vote, even if other people vote for like portals that you don't like, some of the ones that are really bad, like the ones that are obviously bad that people start to dislike, like something like Warwick's, they had occurrences of this in the past, right? Like in previous sets, there were portals, because before, instead of an encounter, you basically vote between 1 out of 3 options. There was something like Warwick's Hunger in previous sets, right? There was a thing like that. And sometimes you would take it for fun, right? Like I would sit on it like maybe 1 every 20 games. It's like, okay, I want to play like a high tempo game and maybe it's like a reroll meta. So you're like, you know what? Let's just send it. I'm going to be forcing a reroll this game and, you know, we'll try our best for fun. But most of the time, if you looked at it, you wouldn't sit on the portal because you'd be like, wow, this shit is not balanced and it doesn't work properly and it fucking sucks. So I don't want to play it. and at least you had a vote, so you had some option. They removed our right to vote. They just took away our right to vote because they thought it was too complicated to vote. I don't know who struggled with voting. Like, no offense. Like, you just stand on the one that you like. I don't get it. Even if you don't know which one is good or bad, or maybe you don't have an opinion, you can just abstain from voting if you don't care or you don't know. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what the complexity is. You can just AFK from the voting if you really wanted to not vote. Like, why? Like, I don't get it. It sucked. It was so bad. And the odds were so miserable because, like, I feel like I've played more games of Scuttle Puddle and Loot Sub this set than I have in any other set, because a lot of the times people won't stand on those portals as frequently at one point in my TFT career. I understand that they're very popular. I understand the majority of the player base likes them, but like at one point, like I don't have like 10 Scuttle Puddle games in a row, but Scuttle Puddle is like one of the most common encounters, so it's just so frustrating. And these are things that I don't really enjoy from the game. I like the more bland ones, and as the set went on, they kind of had there was a huge part in the middle where they had, like, you know, none of the bland ones, and everyone was complaining about it. Then they fixed the odds, and the odds are so much better now, so I can't really complain, but they're still annoying. Like, they would still be better. Like, I feel like my overall gameplay experience, I enjoyed it other sets, like the overarching portal with voting, I feel like on average worked out way better than without the voting. Now maybe I'm wrong with that because I haven't actually tallied it up, like last set and the set before and the set before that versus this set, but it's still frustrating to me to open up the game and to just be forced to not to play something. Like, I'd rather have the whole lobby vote to play Scuttle Puddle and me be the one person not voting, because at least I get to vote. I feel like I have some sort of impact on my opener being something that relates to the gameplay that I want to have and the experience that I want to have, instead of being forced to play something that other people just statistically like. It's like I'd rather put it on the table and lay it to the voting. But you know, whatever. Let's see what their logic is here. Having open encounter instead of portals where you vote on open encounter option continues to hit our goal of lowering the complexity barriers. How is that complex? I don't understand. Who struggles with it? If you struggle with it, just don't vote. It's the same difference. I don't get it. This part I don't get. I have faith that every iron and bronze player can comprehend the idea of voting for a portal. It is not that difficult. Like, who is sitting here saying that's the part of TFT that's too complex? There is econ, interest, items, units, leveling. There's so many things that are so difficult. You're thinking that this is the problem? This is the complexity. I don't... And avoiding the occasional antisocial consequence of the voting process. Whose antisocial process of voting? Oh my god. We're going to continue forward with the... No! If they don't change the odds, I think I'm going to quit TFT, actually. This was one of the worst parts for me. Learned a lot about open encounters. Early on, we had no encounter far too frequently. No, we didn't. What do you mean early on? Early on when? Early on when? In PBE? In PBE it was like 20. What do you mean early on? They changed it on release to be like 10. Early on we had no opening encounter far too frequently under ideas that players liked a more vanilla TFT experience, but that quickly got old, so we ended up going from 40%, no, when was it 40? In our playtest? Oh yeah, okay, sorry. I wasn't part of that playtest. Put me in the playtest. I would have told you it was great. To 20% in PBE, yeah. And then 10% when we hit live. What are you talking about high? 10% isn't even high. That's the same odds as fucking Loot Sub. What are you talking about? That's 10% is high? 10%, 1 in 10 games there's not an encounter? That's not even bad. That's fine. What are we talking about? I would have liked it to be like 15, but whatever. You know what the problem is? The problem is that I play like 10 games a day, and most people play like 1 game a day. So I can understand your perspective if you play like 1 or 2 games a day, because then your experience isn't as fun and exciting, because you want to have like a variance of portals, because it's like, you know, you're playing 1 game a day. But when you play like me, I play 10 games a day. It's like loot sub, scuttle, scuttle, loot sub, loot sub. By the time I hit no encounter, I've already lost 100 LP because of like all these other shits. And it was even worse with Warwick. It says 10% for no encounter. Warwick was 8% on launch. right? You had an equal chance of no encounter, almost equal chance, 10 versus 8%, of like hitting something where your entire outcome of your game was entirely decided by how your stage 2 went. It felt like it was so bad. I also learned that open encounters that dramatically shift the core way you play TFT should probably not exist. Probably? They better say that they're not bringing back Warwick. Here we're referring to Warwick's hunger. Exactly. Thank God. Common sense. This is what I like. The devs are smart. They know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? As much as I bitch and complain, they're good at their jobs, of course. Which shifted the tempo of the lobby too significantly. To an extent, the Mbessa Wandering Golem encounter does this too. Yeah, players and ourselves overwhelmingly love. I don't think people overwhelmingly love it. A lot of the people that I talk to with Mbessa Golem, they usually dislike it. I think it's like it appeals to like the casual player, I think, more so than like most players. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't have the stats on it. It's like most times when I talk about Mbessa, like my comment section is like Mbessa sucks, Mbessa sucks, Mbessa sucks. Whenever I mention Mbessa Wandering Golem. But obviously, like, the group that I'm appealing to is people that are grinding the game and are maybe frustrated by the fact that it's very RNG. So, like, it's a very... So, my sample size is not the entire player base. So, obviously, it's probably renowned loved amongst all the players of TFT overall. So, it's just me that doesn't. I don't even think Mbessa is that bad. Hot take. I think it's okay. Mbessa is really bad if you have the same golem as somebody else. That's the part where it's really bad. If you are the only one with your particular golem, it just becomes like a hard force game, right? It becomes like a degenerate game where you just have to hard force what your golem is. It sucks when your golem is the same or has the best option for your golem is the same as somebody else's, because then you're both hard forcing into a contest while everybody else doesn't have to do that. And that's when it's really bad. So, like, I wish there was a way to make the Mbessa golems unique, but then at the same time, that's bad, because if there's, like, one dominant comp and you make the golems unique, then, like, some people are going to be forced to play shit comps. It only works if everything's balanced. So, I don't know how to properly balance it. They tried to do something where they changed, like, the emblems to be, like, different styles, but, you know, whatever. Let's move on. It's fine. I dislike this, though. I wish they brought back voting. I really, really hate the fact that you're just forced to play whatever the game tells you to play. I would have liked to just vote. I don't think it's too complex, and I dislike this notion. I think they're treating the beginner players to being a lot stupider than they really are. Right? I don't think anybody had problems figuring out how to vote. No offense. And I think if you did, it was probably for one game. Like, I think after 2 games, you probably figured it out. The only problem that this was is if you didn't know what the portals did, because they didn't describe them well enough. But if they described them better, like, you know, it's fine. Chem Baron was our first high stakes trade, directly empowered the units. I think Chem Baron was okay. I think at some parts in the set it was like really broken, so it's kind of annoying. What plagued Chem Baron into Arcane was threshold rebalancing issues. The trade was especially weak on release. That's true. The items were pretty bad. Then they overcorrected it, and then it was really strong. And now it's kind of like in an okay spot, but it's actually really annoying. Like removing the emblem and reworking it towards the end of the set was kind of like whatever. The cash outs were like whatever. With our next set, we should continue to make interesting cash out trades to see what works. I think the best trait that existed like this was Heartsteel, and I wish they took more in the footsteps of Heartsteel. Chem Baron kind of got to that point now with Visionary Chem Baron, but I wish Chem Baron was less about hitting the Giga cap at 500 and was more about having better options to take out resources along the way, because then you could just take repeated small cash outs similar to how Heartsteel was. I thought, like, when I did my original Chem Baron guide, that's where things would have made its way to the meta. And it kind of did towards the end with the Visionary lines, because with Visionary, you often can take 100, 200 cash outs to get copies of Rennies and Duplicators to make things work out. But I wish they just made it more like Heartsteel, right? Everybody, I think unanimously, everybody thought Heartsteel was like banger and everybody liked it. To the point where it was kind of broken at one point in the set. But like, I wish there was just traits like that where you can lose and you don't have to giga commit to like a giga lose streak to win out, that you can just take multiple small cash outs and just play being up resources and kind of tech it in and tech it out and like not worry too much. Like Heartsteel was by far the best version of any of these type of traits that they made, and that was in set 10. So I wish they just made things a little bit more towards Heartsteel, if that makes sense. Next up, we're trying another Cashout. This one geared towards one high moment that requires some big brain pivots. This is not what I want. I want lots of small moments where you can react and play accordingly. So it seems like they're going the opposite direction again, where they're just going for one big Cashout, which I really dislike. I think that whenever you have one big Cashout, it becomes an instant win, and then it just ruins the lobby. It ruins the experience. I like Heartsteel. This is the antithesis, opposite of Heartsteel, but we'll see how it works out. It might be really cool, but I'm not looking forward to it. But maybe it'll be great. Who knows? Let's be positive. Creating multiple choice traits. Form Swapper was an exciting trait on paper, required a lot of extra work. So that had two versions. Was it successful? Kind of. I think it was successful. I actually really liked it. You know, I think they did a good job with it. I think that the problem was that Elise was a stun unit. I think if Elise wasn't a stun unit, it would have been more successful. Because Elise gave a stun, you always had to play Elise frontline. The other ones you can kind of interchange. Gangplank was usually better backline. By the end of the set, Jace was kind of frontline or backline, but there was always one that was better. But a lot of the problem was Elise. Like, they buffed backline Elise so much because, like, just to compensate for the fact that everybody had to play her as a frontline stun bot. You know what I mean? But she always did a lot of damage, and they just kept buffing her because nobody played her as backline. We went at balance as close as you can get. The perception of each Form Swapper was there's a correct and incorrect placement. Yeah, at least frontline. But that's because of her stun, right? It's not like they're correct no matter what. They're making it sound like people are just not being creative. It's like she provides a stun. The stun could literally win you the game, right? If Elise jumps and hits the enemy carry, you win the round. It's a win condition. That, like, the problem is that she stuns. She has one of the best stuns in the game. She just jumps and she hits a giant circle around her. If you position her in front of the enemy carry, she just stuns the entire enemy backline. It is so powerful that, like, why would you look at your board and say to yourself, you know what? Elise backline here. I want more DPS. It's like it never mattered. It was like, if I stun the enemy, I win. Right? So, like, it's not like, that's not a good example. It's like, yes, like, there's a correct and incorrect placement. It's a perception. It's like, no, it's like, it was true. You usually want her as frontline because she would stun the enemy. If she wasn't a stun unit, it would make sense. If she was just like a giga tank, kind of like Swain, look at Swain. Swain, you sometimes put him in the front because he was a good tank, and you sometimes put him in the back because he did a lot of damage. So in certain situations, you would backline Swain if you needed backline damage, or you'd frontline Swain if you needed frontline DPS. He was balanced and he worked out really well both ways. Gangplank to a certain extent got to that point, and so did Jace. But the reason Elise was always a problem is because she's stunned. So the stun was just so much more impactful than having an extra DPS in the backline, because you can just put another DPS in the backline. But you can't put another stun in the front line. Who's the other stun unit? You're going to swap Elise for, like, Rennie? She, like, it usually doesn't fit in the board. That's the problem, right? And the stun units that stun the backline especially, right? Like, there's not that many options for that. And that's why Elise was contested to be a frontline unit by, like, almost every single comp, because not only of her synergies, but also because of the stun. You played her with AD, you played her with AP, you played her with Black Rose. That's why. When Swapper is our most successful multiple choice trait, looking back at things like Storyweaver, Inkborn Fables, or Sona, Maurice Rumble, we saw forms of Swain and Jace Obstin, but Elise and Gangplank were often seen one way or the other. Looking forward, is always going to have to deal with rounding up these issues. Yeah, sure. I think they did a good job. I think that a lot of the issues of, like, Elise being forced as a frontline unit was because she's stunned. If she wasn't the stun unit, then it would have made sense, right? If you made another unit a stun unit that jumped the backline, then it would have been different. Like, if Mundo was the stun unit, right, then Elise would be frontline or backline. She would often probably be backline, because I think her backline damage was way better. In a lot of cases, it's just that you had to play her in the front because she's stunned, and the damage didn't matter if you just win the game because of the stun. Melee champion power scale. Ooh, this is interesting. This is not one that I thought of. Let's see what they say. This one's a bit mathy, but it's pretty simple. Melee champs mostly survive by taking damage and gaining mana from that damage and then casting their abilities. Because of how much HP they gain when they start up, the difference between a 2-star and 3-star melee champ was quite large. They benefit from the HP and AD growth. Yes, that makes sense. This is especially an issue because melee carry success is gated around their ability to survive. Yes, they have to survive. I say this a lot of the time. You need to star them up. Even if it's like a 1-star 4 cost, you need a 2-star 4 cost. When they succeed, they can serve as both a carry and a tank. Key example were Smeech, Violet 3-star and 4, Urgot 3-star, and Warwick, who has a 6 cost and the stats of a 2-star 4 cost. Long term, we're going to have to find a solution for this problem. Yeah, I don't even think it's a problem. That's how it's always been. Like, that's not something that existed just in this set. That's just how it is, right? And it's why a lot of times reroll melee comps are things like assassins in other sets, or rogue, as you can put them in other sets. Even something like a Akali, right? Like Akali is not like an AD, it's like an AP unit. But even Quick Striker Akali had its time to shine. The only reason that those ones aren't in the same area here is because they don't have built-in Omnivamp. So like a lot of times they just died too fast, right? So it's like, you know, and Speech is an annoying, disgusting unit. Tanks and durability. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. Yeah, like this is gonna be like why Leona fucking sucks, right? Because she just doesn't have enough durability to make up for the other people that have like a fucking health shield. Tanks have 4 different types of spells: self-heal, crowd control, self-shield, or gain durability, armor, or magic resistance. Okay, of these 4 types, gaining durability is consistently the weakest because by the time you cast, you've lost a lot of your HP, making the newly added durability less effective. Yes, that makes sense to a certain point, of course. When Leona casts her ability at 100 HP, then 100 HP just becomes 150 effective HP. Yes, that's true. So like, let's say you have a bunch of durability, your effective HP is going to scale up your effective HP. So if you have very low early HP, it's going to be not that much effective HP. It's not like a linear thing. It's like an exponential, not exponential, it's like a multiplicative effect. Yes, this makes sense. This is what I was talking about. Leona just fucking sucks. But I think the way to fix this is just to make it so that she has more shielding, so that her first cast, or sorry, more durability, so that her first cast is more impactful. But that's really hard to balance, so I understand it. And then a tank like Blitzcrank gets a 450 health shield at 100 HP. Yeah, that's true, right? Like if you scale off of your base stats, and you get a bunch of base stats, and it works out really well. So it makes sense. Yeah, it's hard to balance that. It's part of the reason why certain tanks do a lot better than others. But like when I look at this, I think about like you know, a big part of Alawi's kit is the durability that Alawi gets, and Alawi lives really effectively, right? And she doesn't gain like a shield or crowd control. She has a little bit of self-healing, but a lot of her ability is that she gains a big chunk of durability, then she's unkillable for a while, right? A lot of times these type of units where they have this threshold is why something like Protector's Vow is really good on Alawi. Just getting them to cast a little bit earlier to get this extra stats effect is really powerful. So that's when, like, you know, getting early cast starts to matter. And I'm sure, like, if you look in stats, I'm sure Leona would be good with a Protector's Vow as well. It's stuff like that that really matters. But yes, the other scaling is pretty strong. We're gonna have to pay attention to tanks that gain armor or thing. Yeah, activate early, or hooks that keep them viable. Yeah, I think this is what I was saying, right? Like making it so that our first cast is more impactful, or maybe make it so that maybe like even like higher starting mana might make it so that she was a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like if she gets her first cast off a little bit earlier, so that on average you're getting a greater effective HP from your gain and durability. Festival Beast Revivals, I don't give a shit. No offense, I just don't care about these at all. I wanted to do videos. People asked me if I can do videos about these things, but it just didn't. It's just so boring to me. I did not want to do it. That was long. Yeah, this was a long video. This is probably like an hour long video from me. And just like making TFT, couldn't have written this one alone. I like to say thank you to all the devs. I love reading these things because, you know, obviously, if you watch me stream when I'm playing the game, I'm always cursing the existence of everybody and how I hate the game and everything's not fun. But, you know, I still play the game because I do have fun occasionally. I think the devs do a really great job. I think that sometimes I disagree, but most of the time I agree. Like, I agree with like 90% of the stuff that's here. The only thing that I think that that I don't like is the fact that they're still keeping opening encounters, right? But like everything else, it's like pretty much exactly what I said. I'm like, oh, this I don't think they did super well. And then they say, yeah, we didn't do it super well, and this is how we're gonna fix it. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, you guys understand me. They're just like me, for real, for real. I think the devs are great. Always show love to the devs because they do try really hard. They do work really hard, and I think they are very, very well done. This was one of the best done sets. It was, right? The people like it and the people who don't, it's usually a matter of opinion. This is one of those sets where it comes down to opinion more so than it being objectively bad, right? I say that a lot, right? Like, I really hated 6 cost, which ruined my experience of this set, and I also didn't like the opening encounters. I didn't like the encounter rates in certain cases, but that doesn't mean that it was a bad set, right? It was just bad for me. If somebody tells me it's their favorite set, if somebody tells me that, this was their most enjoyed of the past like several, that's fine. That's totally valid. This set was really well balanced. They did an amazing job this set from start to finish. A lot of the things they did really well at addressing big issues. A lot of their decisions made sense. There wasn't anything that's super absurd or swingy or awkward or weird. They did amazing. Great jobs. Like, I remember when I did this for set 12 and I was just cursing the existence of everything. I was like, yeah, this fucking sucked. The set was bad. The balance was bad. Blah, blah, blah. Here, you know what? Good set. I hope everybody else enjoyed set 13. Right? We're kind of winding down. We're kind of getting into these, like, philosophically kind of videos where we're just kind of talking and chilling. But trust me, we're going to ramp up again with all the content because there's going to be a huge slew of guides that I'm going to have to do as soon as we get information about the next set, which is going to be either tomorrow or the day after. So very soon, very fun. We're going to have one more fun video for set 13 somewhere in the mix. And if we end up doing like the viewer games, I'm going to post the viewer games on here as well so everybody can watch the viewer games, and I'll maybe do some commentary on it. We'll see how it can work out. We'll try and organize in the Discord. So if you want to be a part of the viewer games and maybe have some of your gameplay featured on this channel, ideally we'll see. Obviously, I'm a small content creator, so if we can't get enough of a lobby put together, it won't come to fruition. But if you want to be a part of that, I'll put more information in my Discord, so you can check it out there. Thank you for watching. Thanks for the support. Thanks for sticking around, and see ya. Bye-bye.